Alan.
Okay. My name is Alan Palais, and this is the Sunday morning service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown on July 13th, 2020, June 13th, 2021. I want to get something off my screen here. A minute, okay. I am a member of the congregation. I welcome those who have tuned in this morning and those who are seeing the recording of this service. Due to COVID, our services have recently been virtual, but we look forward to getting back to in-person services as soon as it is safe to do so. Yes, I see a note here, okay. We are a congregation that welcomes all, whether you are seeing us with spirits high or spirits low. We welcome you. Whether your beliefs tend towards atheism or theism, liberalism or conservatism, we welcome you. We welcome all who are searching, seeking, looking for more knowledge, more service, more friendship. Our religion, Unitarian Universalism, is built on 7 ethical principles. You can find them in our website under the tab Be Our Guest. With those principles in mind, we consider a wide array of topics in our various Sunday morning services, and we have a wide array of speakers, including our ministers, guest ministers, members of our congregation, lay speakers from outside and inside our congregation. Okay, somebody's asking me to improve my camera. Okay, do we have any announcements?
I have mine, same one as last week. We are meeting in person in 2 weeks at the fellowship. We are meeting outside, repeat, outside. If you want to come, and we hope you do, we're requesting that you bring your own chair. Bring sunscreen, just because we're going to be meeting outside, and even though there are trees and things, the sun is powerful. And bring water, because if it's really hot, water is absolutely necessary, even a hat. And we're going to, I'll explain at the start of the service more of what we're going to do, and we'll post, I think I'm going to ask Linda to post it on the website, exactly how we're going to handle everything, or we'll send out an email exactly what we're going to do. So hope to see people in person and not little square boxes.
Okay, any more announcements?
Yes, I have one. And speaking of in person, last Sunday we met for a coffee hour, those of us that could make it. It was a special coffee hour. We brought together a whole table of wonderful strawberry desserts and goodies. And so we called it our strawberry coffee hour. And we had a wonderful time in person. It was terrific. And we're planning another coffee hour like that in July. And let's see, that's going to be on the 11th. We're having a blueberry coffee hour, and we're going to encourage people to bring blueberry goodies. So plan ahead and think about what you'd like to bring, and come and well, of course, we'll already be meeting in person anyway, but that'll be a special coffee hour.
Any more announcements?
Yeah, I have one, just as a reminder, excuse me, that we will hold our annual congregational meeting this morning after the services, starting at approximately, give or take, I think UU time, about 11:40. Bless you.
I just need.
I have an announcement. Me and Linda are going to be, Linda Kaczynski, are going to be delegates to the GA this coming up in a week and a half. And we're going to be voting on on at least 2 issues. One being an election to one of the contested positions on the board of directors, and also a statement of conscience. If anybody is interested in those issues and ideas on how we should vote, or I could tell you how I plan to vote, please call me. I'll give you my number. It's in the phone book, our directory, 610-458-7678, 610-458-7678.
Okay.
Any more announcements?
Can we send out the options for the statement of concern, or have you already decided what the statement of concern is?
Well, the statement of, it's a statement of conscience.
Conscience.
And that is a statement which it's already written, is a draft written, and I could send it out to the congregation.
Okay, just wondering what you're voting on there.
Okay, I will
we-
send out the statement of conscience to the congregation.
And what was the other thing? First thing,
There is a contested election for one of the Board of Trustees seats.
oh. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, we have as a prelude, we have a hymn. It is number 361, Enter Rejoice and Come In. And Carly, I'm going to give a shot at projecting the words on the screen. And after they are projected, can you please play? Can everyone see the words?
Yes.
Okay, Carly, can you begin playing? Thank you, Carly. Mary, I'm going to say a few words written by the Reverend Florence Caplow that are going to relate to lighting the chalice. And when I'm done, could you light the chalice, please, Mary? We kindle this flame, honoring the doorways of our soul, the windows through which we gaze at one another, the balconies where we catch glimpses of sky, the thresholds we stand on this morning, wondering, hoping, fearing, dreaming. Thank you, Mary. We will now have an opening hymn. It's number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth, and I will project the words. And I forgot to say it before, it didn't matter, but if you're going to sing along, which I encourage you do, then mute so it doesn't cause a lot of issues with sound. For the Beauty of the Earth. Beautiful hymn. Carly. Thank you, Carly. Now we're ready for joys and concerns. We are a caring community with an interest in the joys and concerns of our members and friends. Does anyone have a joy or concern they would like to share at this time?
I do.
Go ahead.
This is news to you too, Alan, but we have a new member of our garden club. Mary Ryan is the championship weeder. You'll notice next time when you go to the garden that it's amazingly beautifully weeded. So just wanted to say thank you, Mary. And we always need weeders. Thanks.
Any more joys and concerns? Okay, we will move on then to the offertory. The financial generosity of our members and friends has kept us going during this difficult COVID period. If current trends continue, we will soon be together again at our beautiful fellowship site. We do offertories to help make sure that we will keep going. You can contribute by going to the chat box at any time and click on the link under the word donate, and then do the rest. You can also send checks. Carly, could you play the music that we talked about? Thank you, Carly. Our speaker today is Reverend Amanda Aikman, a retired Unitarian Universalist minister. She served congregations in the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia for 23 years. So I listed her as a minister, but that is only one of the many titles I could have used. I could have used author. She wrote a book called Full Spectrum Joyfulness. I could have used playwright. She's written several plays and saw them performed. I could have used producer. She found a theater company and produced plays. I could have used trainer. She wrote training programs and conducted them. And there is more. When I asked her about her current activities, she said, I'm working on a novel, but I'm considering taking up an easier pastime, such as running ultra marathons. So I am glad she is willing to take time away from her many activities to be with us today. Reverend Aikman.
Thank you, Alan. Well, I'm very pleased to be here. And I'd like to invite you to join with me in a time of prayer, pausing to set aside busy thoughts, stepping aside from the concerns of the moment, and releasing ourselves from all that holds us apart from the deepest of deep within. Let us open our hearts to all who suffer in this world, to those whom we know intimately and love, to those we do not know but would love were we to truly know them, to those who suffer from the ravages of war, to all who hunger, to all who seek freedom from injustice, and to the children here and everywhere. Today, let us open our hearts especially to, in this circle, to all those who are dealing with loss and illness, uncertainty, distress. From the communities in which we live, we remember the homeless, the discouraged, and those in the grip of addictions, as well as those dealing with the coronavirus. For our nation, we pray for justice, for wise leaders, for an ongoing awakening to the values of freedom and equality. And from our world community, we remember all peoples who are suffering from want and war and fear. We open our hearts to those awaiting a vaccination and to those who have lost loved ones to the pandemic. We open our hearts too to the many creatures, animals, and plants all over the world and beneath the ocean and in the air, and we wish them all well, even the cicadas. May we be among those who create an environment in which all can flourish. And finally, we remember ourselves, the private, secret chambers of our inner beings. We remember the infinite preciousness of ourselves. Remember that no one in the whole world is more worthy of love than you are. We forgive and embrace ourselves. We open our hearts to ourselves. May all beings be happy and peaceful. May all beings be free from fear and pain. May all beings live with love and compassion. May all beings fully awaken and be free. Blessed be. Amen. May it be so. And our hymn is The Sweet June Days.
Okay, I'm going to project the words. trouble here, and let's see if I can get this. Damn it. Here we go. Carly? Thank you, Carly.
Greetings, Pottstown Unitarian Universalists from Snohomish County in Washington State. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you today. I trust that you are enjoying the prospect of summer with many reasons to be hopeful. This is the time of year when we might be thinking about, it's not just the time of year, it's the time in our history as we emerge from this pandemic. We might be thinking about seeking some guidance for ourselves, using our imaginations, our inner wisdom, and our life experience to create or to tune up some sort of plan for our lives going forward. Even though, as we saw in 2020, the world has a way of mocking our efforts, it is still good to have some sort of map or sense of direction for our lives. The title of my sermon is Finding Your True North. True north means that inner orientation that each of us has that keeps directing us towards our highest values and deepest desires. A couple of years ago, before I retired, I'd been working a bit too hard and was feeling a bit burnt out. It was early spring, and I was in need of a solo retreat to someplace where I could relax and think. So I ended up planning to take a long weekend for a road trip to Walla Walla, a charming small town in Washington's wine country, 5 hours drive from my home near Seattle. The delightfully named Walla Walla, a place I had only visited once, seemed just far away enough to feel like a real break from my usual life. I rented a cottage for a 3-night stay, packed a small bag, put my bike on the bike rack, and set off. Now, instead of looking at my route on an actual map to get a big picture of where I was going, I used only the Google Maps app in my phone to guide me. And as often happens, it sent me off in an unexpected direction. As I got to within 100 miles or so of Walla Walla, instead of telling me to continue along the busy freeway that I was on, the GPS instructed me to exit and drive down a minor road. I thought, oh, an adventure, here we go. It started out charmingly enough, but soon I found myself driving through rugged ranch country without a car or human in sight, mile after mile, though there were plenty of dry bushes, empty hillsides, craggy rock outcroppings, and circling slowly overhead in the clear blue sky, yes, turkey vultures. As the road curved alarmingly and became narrower, and still there was no sign of a human dwelling or another vehicle mile after mile, I found myself clinging rather desperately to the reassuring voice of my only friend, Siri. who I have set to speak in the British male accent, which sounds a bit like Hugh Grant. In 2 miles, turn left onto State Route 22 toward Byron. Byron, okay. I didn't know where the heck I was, but Siri did, so I kept on. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a GPS for our life? Clear spoken spiritual guidance that would tell us exactly what we should do as we reach the decision points in our life. At the next intersection, make a U-turn. Go back to that interview and say yes to that job. It will be great for your career. Or in 800 feet, stop at the house on the right and make an offer. Your children will grow up in that house and it will be your family's cherished home for decades. Or in 2 minutes, do not give your phone number to that charming stranger or you'll end up in a soul-draining marriage for 11 years. At important crossroads in our lives, or even just in our everyday decisions, we may yearn for that sort of clear guidance. As long as there have been humans, we have had that yearning to understand what we should do with our lives, with our gifts, or with our next hour. Figuring it all out is called discernment. To discern is to perceive or recognize the difference or distinction between two or more things. So when we practice discernment in a spiritual sense, we're sorting out values, sorting out what serves our higher purpose and what doesn't. How can we discern? How can we discover what some people would call God's will for our lives? How can we uncover our heart's truest, deepest desires? How can we live out our potential and give our gifts to the world? The Spanish 16th century theologian Ignatius of Loyola, who founded the Jesuits, was very interested in this question, the question of discernment. Discernment is all about sorting through a variety of options, sorting the sheep from the goats. Now, that's not usually too hard. The sheep are the well-behaved ones. But then the harder part is sorting through the sheep to discern which ones you want to keep. Lots of ideas come into our minds. Lots of impulses come through us. Some of them, Ignatius believed, are clearly wrong and thus easy to dismiss. Some are appealing for one reason or another, and some of these opportunities, these impulses, are divinely inspired. The true spirit of life speaking to us through our dreams, our desires, our talents and inclinations. And the difficult part of discernment is to distinguish between good paths. Which is the right career path to follow, for example? The one that pays well but is dull, or the one that is more risky but potentially more rewarding? Our whole species needs wise discernment now more than at any other time in history as we confront the massive challenge of climate change, as well as the horrors of systemic racism and the global rise of authoritarianism. As Unitarian Universalists, we are committed to affirming and promoting the interdependent web of all existence. We don't believe there's a division between humanity and the rest of creation. We believe that we humans are connected to all of creation at a radical, a root level. Therefore, we have faith that any positive movement we make in our own lives and our own immediate environment will affect the whole. If we create peace and stability in a chaotic organization, or bring health and healing to our family, or create a work of art that inspires people to work for justice, the ripple effects make the world a slightly better and healthier place. For this reason, the more wisdom we can bring to bear on our own discernment process, the more we can add to the world's store of wisdom, health, and wholeness. To bring this back to the personal level, Perhaps you can think of something in your life right now where you're stuck between two paths. It could be an important decision, such as where and when to downsize and move, or a minor decision such as where to volunteer a few hours a week. Maybe a medium decision like whether to spend your next vacation in, say, Arizona or New Mexico. So just right now, my friends, let something float up to you, a decision, large or small, where you're somewhat stuck between two or more good options, and would really love to hear your inner GPS speak clearly to you with the right advice. So take a moment to find that place where you need to make a decision. Now, to illustrate one form of discernment which would help you make that decision, I'm going to flip a coin, although I have learned it's more sensible to use an app than an actual coin, which tends to fly all over the room. So this is my coin flip app, and I'll show you how this works. So I just say flip a coin, and it says that's heads, tails. So it's totally random, just like a coin flip. So you decide how this coin flip I'm about to do will affect your decision. For instance, you might say to yourself, if it's tails, I'll spend my vacation in Arizona. If it's heads, New Mexico. So in your own mind, call it. If it's heads, if it's tails, okay? So I'm going to flip the coin now. Before I tell you, which do you hope it will be? There is your answer. The answer is inside you already. Your heart knows. One perspective on discernment is that we make meaning as we walk along. There is no larger plan. There's no God's will for our life, no where I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to be doing in the universal scheme of things. There's only choice. The choices we make, their consequences for our lives and relationships, what these choices say about us, and to what extent they enable us to live to the fullest of our capacity. So that's one perspective on discernment. It's all about our choices. A different language of discernment, comes from the tradition of theistic belief, in which the seeker lives and moves within a divine field or ground of being. The universe is expressing and unfolding a divine intention through us, what some call the divine will and others call the divine longing, and we are part of its expression and its fulfillment. At different times in my life, when I was drifting and desperately in need of guidance, I sought messages from God, usually through meditation and prayer. Sometimes I used the tarot or the I Ching. There was a not very healthy time in my life where I would barely go out my front door without consulting the I Ching first. And I still find myself consulting it when I'm in a conundrum and feeling powerless. The thing about the I Ching and the tarot and the runes and astrology and all the rest of the divination techniques, the thing is that those messages we get from them are always rather vague. And I believe that this is why they appear to work, because they give us a pathway around our logical, skeptical brain and into a deeper, more intuitive place of knowing, a place where we are in touch with our most authentic needs and desires and gifts. They sometimes seem to be amazingly accurate because we already intuit the direction we need to go. We already know how we want the coin flip to come out. One simple but profound practice that we can use that can help us when we find ourselves stuck and wondering what action to take. One practice that can help guide us is the Ignatian practice called the Examen, E-X-A-M-E-N, Examen. Ignatius taught this method of determining God's will by distinguishing between what he called the desolations, the life-draining parts of our life, and the consolations, the life-giving experiences. Each night as we prepare for sleep, we can ask ourselves two questions. When did I feel most alive today? And when did I feel least alive? We bring those two moments before our mind's eye and give thanks for both of them. And that's all there is to it. Perhaps we'd like to make a quick note in a journal. I felt most alive today when I was walking the dog before breakfast. I felt the least alive today when I was talking to my sister on the phone. No need to analyze, just to notice. But over time, if we pay attention, we will realize that our inner wisdom or God is using our daily experiences to guide us toward the places, people, and experiences that give us the most life and where our gifts can be best used. The Examen is a great practice at any time when we're trying to discern life's desire for us, but especially later in life when we're trying to make sense of it all. We can look back over our life to this point and ask, when did I feel most alive? When did I feel the most love, joy, delight, satisfaction? And where have I felt energy draining from me, felt frustration, anger, emptiness? We identify the aspects of those things that have given us life, and we do the best that we can to move toward new experiences that share the essence of those things that have given us the most life. Once we've come to a decision, we check it out through prayer or reflection, asking for confirmation that the decision is leading us toward the best outcome for all concerned. The usual sign of this confirmation is an experience of peacefulness about the decision. Every single time that I have not listened to my inner wisdom, I've had the exact same experience. My insecure voice, which tries to make me make a decision right away and get rid of the anxiety, that insecure voice trying to persuade me says, it won't be so bad. I'll be driving away from the interview where I've accepted a job offer that my heart knows is wrong for me, an offer which I have accepted out of anxiety, and I hear those words, it won't be so bad. And you know what? It always, always is so bad. But every single time I get the confirmation that I've chosen the right path, I feel a sense of anticlimax. I feel suddenly relaxed, as if I were a marionette whose strings had just been cut. I feel physically loose and floppy. My breathing deepens and all my muscles feel sort of flowy. That's how I know I've made the correct decision. Your mileage, as they say, may differ. Ultimately, perhaps though, the GPS is not the best metaphor for our inner guidance system. Perhaps the compass is. A compass points in one direction, north. The compass needle doesn't point southwest to indicate that you should turn southwest and then switch to due east when that's the better way to go. The compass simply shows you the direction of the Earth's North Pole. The point of the needle is drawn towards the north because it experiences a magnetic attraction to north. That's all the compass does for you. North is the only thing it reveals. What you do in relation to that knowledge is up to you. You can move directly toward it. You can turn in the opposite direction and walk south. You can hike upstream along a winding creek that meanders this way and that, but always moves generally in a northern direction. A GPS enables us not to have to think. We're simply told what to do. We don't need to be aware of where we are or how to get where we want to go. But a compass places the responsibility for awareness and choice in our hands, always gently nudging us towards true north, whatever that is for each of us. As we practice and develop an increasingly sensitive awareness of what greater or lesser well-being feels like, as we learn to distinguish when we are moving toward or away from that well-being, we develop a foundation for truer choices. We find true north by attuning to a sense of sacredness or wholeness within both ourselves and others. Our nation has veered way off its true north at many points during our history, notably over the past 4 years. I believe that at last we are making a much needed course correction with steady hands at the wheel. But the underlying issues remain, and we must be steady as well as we look at them with clear eyes. In this era, when the forces of division, racism, and irrationality howl like mighty winds and threaten to whip us away from our center, we, as a nation, as individuals, need to be in profound relationship with our true north. We need to know where we stand in relation to our most cherished values so that when we do get blown off course, we will find our way back and be even stronger for our detour. In the words of Amanda Gorman from her poem that she read at the inauguration, we will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. Following your true north, your life path may be winding. You may take side roads that lead nowhere and require backtracking. There probably will be turkey vultures circling overhead at some point. But if you commit to openly, honestly listening to your inner quiet voice of wisdom, you can, I believe, trust that the overall direction is true to your innermost soul. And you can trust that there will be more and more junctures along your way when, with a profound sense of relief, you will receive the welcome message that you are on the right path. And indeed, despite the sometimes scary and very lonely miles of the last leg of my trip to Walla Walla, I did eventually get to my destination. And when I pulled in to the driveway of an adorable welcoming cottage, I heard those lovely words, "You have arrived." May it be so for all of us. Amen.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm going to suggest that we skip the last hymn, and so we have more time for discussion. Is that okay, Amanda? Okay. Okay. So Reverend Amanda will be staying with us for a while, maybe 20 minutes. I increased the amount of time by skipping the hymn. So you could, so if you like to give her your reactions to this sermon or share something that came up for you or ask a question, please feel to do so. And then we will go, after that, we'll go to the congregational meeting. Does anybody have any comments or anything that came to mind during this sermon or before?
I have the one was just silly. My sister and brother-in-law were telling me one time they turned on Siri to get them to a ferry And then when they were getting on the ferry, Siri freaked out. Stop, turn back. You can't go any further.
That's great.
And then she just quit. Must have figured they'd gone in the water or something. But she said it was hysterical. And the other one was when you were talking about heads or tails, I'm like, okay, because I made a spur of the moment decision the other night with my sister. And I was like, okay, you better, I want it to be what I want it to be. And so I've made the decision I wanted to make. But very much as you're talking about that, when there was a time I was laid off that was the third layoff, about 20 years ago. And I had a couple of offers and I was like, okay, which way am I going to go? And one of my mom's buddies was a big believer in dreams.
Mhm.
And so my thing is, when I go to sleep at night, which job am I dreaming about? And am I happy while I'm dreaming about it? And that's the one I took, and it was the right choice.
Wow, cool.
So I'm a big believer in your dreams telling you when you're trying to figure something out. Your dreams are going to tell you, because that's your subconscious talking to you.
Right. Thanks, Mary. I don't remember my dreams, so I didn't think of that. But of course, that's a great classic way of figuring out what your heart really wants.
Yeah.
So that worked out for you. That's great.
Oh, it did work out until they laid me off about 12 years later. But,
Oh, wow.
but that ended up being very profitable, and I used the payout money to take a nice big trip.
Great. Thank you.
CJ. You're muted.
You're on mute, CJ.
You're muted, CJ.
I loved your service. Absolutely loved your service.
Yeah.
Reverend Eggman, fabulous. I did not know the head of the
Ignatius?
Jesuits. Yeah, Ignatius. I did not know that he put forth that. I've made really big decisions looking at what makes my heart sing. So you just look at what this makes my heart sing, that doesn't make my heart sing. So I only do the things that make my heart sing. But I like the idea of doing the flipping of the coin, but then before you look at it, say, which one do I want it to be? That just to me, because sometimes it's really hard to discern. So I just loved it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, CJ. Thanks. I've talked a lot today, but I'll go ahead and just tell my story about how I decided to become a UU minister. I had applied at the exact same time to be in another, to go to a different kind of seminary for a totally different religion. And I was accepted by both seminaries. Were very, very different for a lot of reasons. And I just could not decide whether to go to Starr King, the UU seminary, or the other seminary. And I just was like, I did everything I could think of to try to make this decision. And I just said, well, I finally said, I give up. I'm just going to wait for a sign. And one Friday night, I was listening to a spiritual show that used to be on public radio, New Dimensions, I think it was called. And I'm just listening to it as I did every week. And there was, what's his name? The guy who wrote Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten.
Oh, yeah.
Just forgot his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, Fulgham, thank you, Robert Fulgham. So he was talking, he was the guest on the show. And the first thing he said was, well, when I was in seminary in Berkeley, and it was like, oh, and he talked about Starr King, and I decided that was where to go. It was a good decision. And I got to meet him years later. He was at General Assembly, and I said, hey, I want you to know what influence you had on me. And I told him about it. And he said, well, was it the right decision? And I said, oh, yeah. And he said, good.
Well, of course, how do you know it was the right decision?
You do, you just do, you know.
Okay. I'm talking like a statistician.
It's
Uh,
always the right decision. See, there's the
Yeah,
key.
because, you know,
Whatever decision you make is always the right decision.
CJ,
you-
that is a very good philosophy. It's very, very good. My partner has that philosophy. She says, whatever works out was the right one. So I tend to be more anxious and prone to regret.
yeah, clinical trials was on my mind, and there's always this question: if you take a drug and you get better, the big question is, what would have happened if you didn't take the drug? You know, so that just is in my mind. Maybe it doesn't not appropriate, but this is not a clinical trial. A couple of things. First of all, the coin flip is a very interesting process. I agree with that, you know, because what CJ said and what you were alluding to, because you do have a preference when you flip a coin, and maybe that's helpful. And I like the idea of when you make a decision, if you're saying to yourself, it won't be so bad, that may not be the right decision. That's interesting. But there is another kind of thing I just want to mention, and that is when you have to make a decision and there's this conflict, you alluded to a little bit, between what is personally good for you and what is good for the society or the whole or something like that. You know, the selfish desire versus the more altruistic desire. And we can't be totally altruistic, life wouldn't work out for us. But making that decision, sometimes when you know, well, it would be better for society one way and better for me the other way, you know, that's a hard decision. And it comes up with myself, but also with my children. You know, for myself, I could say, well, I'm going to sacrifice and do something good for society, even though it won't be that good for me, let's say. But when I hear my children making choices, I say, don't be a martyr, don't be a hero. you know, that thought comes stronger with them. So, you know, that's a tough one.
Maybe you should say that to yourself more often, Alan.
Don't be a hero, don't be a martyr.
Yeah.
I don't have to say that to myself. I know I don't want to be a hero or a martyr.
Chris Barnhouse, do you have your hand up like you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I can't see.
No, just scratching. Okay.
And one more quick thing, and that is, there is a problem I have with decision making between my lazy self and my energetic self. Do I go out for a walk in the woods in rough terrain, in a wild place, or do I sit on the couch? Well, you know, sometimes that's a hard one, because I on the one hand, my heart says, well, one part of my heart says, sit on the couch, just relax. But when I get out there, I'm glad I did. So there's that decision, especially since I'm retired now and I'm not forced to do certain things. So I'll just leave it at that as a difficult decision that comes up often.
Absolutely.
Well, I just wanted to share, since you said that, Alan, that one of the way I deal with that, because I have so many things I have to do because of, my back pain and all that. I have to do physical therapy every day. I have to go walking an hour. I have to eat right. I have to do all this stuff in order to keep my back pain down. And you have that decision. Do I want to sit on the couch and watch TV, or do I want to go for a walk? And even if it's like raining out or whatever. And I realized that the best way for me to approach that is to turn it around. in an hour, do I want to feel great about what I just did? Or do I want to feel regret because I did nothing but sit here and watch TV? So I don't look at the choice as my choice for the moment. I look at the choice as the overall result. Same with eating. If I eat too much, sweets, too much candy and cake and whatever, then of course I gain. Do I want to gain the pound, or do I want to stay at my weight? So that's the decision that I have to make. And I even have a little card in my pocket a lot of times that says, I want to eat, I want to feel better, and walk without chafing, because that's my thighs chafe when I weigh too much. Does this sweet, is it worth giving that up? Feeling good and not chafing. So it's a little trick I learned from cognitive behavioral therapy that works really well.
Thank you, CJ. You sound incredibly mature. I aspire to such.
I'll have to try that one, 'cause as I sit here and eating a piece of coffee.
I can get the card out for you right now. It's right over there. I got my little card that I look at when I want to eat something that I know I shouldn't eat. That's what I get out. Is it
Yeah.
worth giving that up? And I don't always listen. Sometimes say, yeah, that ice cream cone is worth giving that up. But sometimes I don't. More times than not, I don't. I don't give in to the temptation.
I'm glad.
Chris,
I had a
Chris?
friend when I was a kid. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to let Chris talk, because finally she really does
Well,
want to talk.
I'm Chris, but I'll let Ruby talk.
Oh, okay.
Change the name on
Yeah.
our Zoom thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I didn't know about that card before our son's birthday party yesterday, because we had a lot of great cake and ice cream and homemade goodies. And honestly, I don't regret any of it. But today is a new day for starting over.
I had a friend when I was young who was also a musician, and he was a prodigy. He got mad at his parents one day when he was somewhere between 5 and 10. I don't really know when. And he decided he was going to run away. So he packed his suitcase, and his mother met him at the front door and said, we would miss you terribly. And I normally, I would hate to see this happen, but I can't let you run away today. And he said, why not? She said, because you have a rehearsal this afternoon. And I have to tell you that I'm really glad musicians are like that. If there's going to be a rehearsal, you have to go, whether you want to or not. So, and to this very day, there are many times when I do not want to go to a rehearsal, and I drag myself there and ask myself, why am I doing this? But by the end of the rehearsal, I am so glad that I went to rehearsal. So in that case, I'm not making the decision. I guess I really am. But if it was what made me feel alive ahead of time, it was very different from what actually did make me feel alive.
Yes, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well said.
Now, there was the football weight coach when I was in college, had a weightlifting class, an exercise and weightlifting class once a week in the fall, or it was more toward the winter. And I would I don't want to go up there. Because I didn't have a car, and it wasn't the bus schedule, so it's a walk. And it was about 1.5 miles up to wherever he was holding it, and on campus. And I could, it's 15 degrees. It's January. It's Nebraska. Please.
Oh.
Or actually, it would have been warm at 15 degrees at that time. But I would drag myself up there. I'd do the exercises. I would go through the whole weight circuit and everything. I could run that 1.5 miles home.
Wow.
I would trudge up, and afterwards I'd stop and walk for a few steps, but pretty much I ran the whole 1.5 miles back home. And I'm like, man, that felt good, And then the next week it would be the same argument.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
I have something. It used to be there was a theory that, okay, if you have a big decision to make, you do two different columns. One is pros, one is cons,
Right.
that kind of thing. And I remember trying that for big decisions, but in the long run, you actually do what you were talking about, is go with what your heart says. But maybe it kind of lays it out in your head better. I don't know, but I do agree that your heart knows. You just need to, it's like when you get older, you can't remember something. You ever have that happen?
No.
An actor's name.
I've
you
read
need-
about it.
But you need to relax your brain and relax your thoughts so that you can let that come in, what that decision is. The same as, remembering the actor Akeem Tamaroff, from way back when. But I think just having that relaxed and not the pulling in and the tightening,
Anxiety.
the anxiety, and you let it come and you know what you need to do.
That is great, Kay. And I think writing all the pros and cons helps relax the brain, doesn't it? It gets it all out where you can see it. And then you do what you wanted to do in the first place. And
Right.
it seems
Yeah.
illogical, but it's not.
The story of the philosopher of logic, especially his logic, he had a big decision. Should he marry this woman or not? And he wrote all the pros and cons out, and it came out con. And when he finished, he said, but I do want to marry her. So just apropos with what was just said.
Well,
I had the same experience with when I was making the decision to become the senior editor of a series of books called The Entrepreneur's Guide to. Logically, it made no sense. Lots and lots of time that was going to take me away from stuff that I should be doing. No money. I mean, it's this wasn't a paid. I mean, they paid me $300 for like a year's worth of work. There was really nothing. And so you lay out all the pros and cons, and the cons way outweigh all the pros. But I was talking to someone about making the decision, and they said, do you hear yourself? Do you hear how excited you are about this opportunity? And he made the decision for me. Yeah, I don't care that it's all cons. I really want to be the senior editor for this series of books. And it turned out to be a fabulous opportunity because I really enjoyed it.
That is awesome. And I just want to respond to that. I'm a spiritual director as well as all the other odds and ends I do. And what I've noticed is, especially when people are talking about younger people who are trying to figure out what to do with their lives, I watch for the hands. And you just showed exactly that. Like, I know I should be a teacher, but I really love to be a forest ranger because I love being out there. When people start waving their hands around, it's a sure sign. You need a witness. You need somebody to listen to you sometimes, and watch you. But it's like I just watch for the hands. If the hands are flying around, that's the thing that's making that person feel alive.
I have to, there was one, you're talking to Alan about do I want to get married or not? And this is not my story. My mother has told me this, but it's the goofiest way to make a decision ever. She was at the University of Wisconsin during the Second World War. And if you look at her picture, there are like 3 guys and it's all women. But there was one man there that was studying, who's a physicist, and he was dating 2 women, and he was trying to decide which one. And then he ended up going to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and they're all trying to figure out what the heck he's doing in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. But he wrote both women letters, and he put them in the wrong envelopes on purpose and mailed them out.
Oh, God.
And he figured they would make the decision for him. One woman laughed it off, ha ha. The other woman got madder than hell at him. And he had to do a lot of begging, and that was his wife for the next 60 years.
Really?
Oh,
He married the woman who got mad because he knew she was the one who cared.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
That's how so he wanted to stay, move, get married. But, and you know what he was doing in Oak Ridge? He was working on the Manhattan Project.
Right.
well, then for
Wow, that's a great story.
the next 60 years, did he end up making her mad and then having to grovel?
No, they had a.
No, he
they
was
were
scared of
in a
her.
lucky marriage. He taught at, he ended up teaching at Virginia Tech. I think nuclear physics or something. But isn't that crazy? He said, the one who gets mad at me is the one who gives a darn.
Well, we're getting close to a 11:45, so I'm going to ask Mary to extinguish the chalice, and I'll just say these short words. We end our service today by extinguishing the chalice. May the memory of its light and the light of the service stay with us. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
your
you.
contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Reverend.
Thank you, Amanda.
I really enjoyed this. Thanks
Yeah,
so
he
much,
did
Alan.
great.
Yeah, wonderful.